This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. Good morning, I'm John Trout. It's Wednesday, January 15th, 2025. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning.
1 week since the historically devastating wildfires broke out in Southern California, and finally 2 words that sound like music to the ears.
No growth.
I'm Jim Roope in Los Angeles.
One of Donald Trump's most endangered cabinet picks is facing a testy confirmation hearing. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
The House passes a bill surrounding men in women's sports.
Only women can be in women's sports?
I'm Clayton Neville.
On Wall Street, it's all about inflation this morning. We're going to get the latest numbers with the December Consumer Price Index. I'm Jessica Ettinger.
A new toll on drivers entering the core of Manhattan brought modest but measurable traffic reductions. Julie Walker, New York.
Government inspectors documented unsanitary conditions at several Boar's Head deli meat plants. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
All ahead on America in the Morning. A new round of Santa Ana winds hits Southern California, but firefighters are managing to keep the devastating wildfires from gaining more ground. Fires that have already scorched over 62 square miles. Our Jim Roope reports from Los Angeles.
Jim Hudson, incident commander for the California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection, known as CAL FIRE, says in spite of strong winds, crews have had a productive 24 hours.
The fire has remained in its footprint with no growth.
That footprint is 23,713 acres. This current red flag warning will lift at 6 this evening, and Mother Nature is expected to provide a few days of cooler weather with an onshore breeze that will increase humidity levels, allowing firefighters to contain more of the fire. The Eaton fire is holding fast as well at 14,117 acres, and containment has grown to 35%. More winds, however, return next week. As containment grows, so do arrests of people within the evacuated fire zones. L.A. County Sheriff Commander Christine Coles says 39 people have been arrested by sheriff's deputies for various alleged criminal activity.
Looting, unauthorized entry into an emergency area, battery on a peace officer.
LAPD Commander Steve Emmerich.
3 are for failure to obey curfews, 1 for impersonating a police officer, 1 for impersonating a firefighter, 1 possession of ammunition and burglary tools, 2 for burglary.
A total so far of 53 arrests. They also include arrests for operating a drone in a fire zone. Now, as the firefight continues, so does the investigation into how they started. The ATF is investigating the Palisades fire origin. A theory right now, and it's only a theory so far, is that a 4-acre fire started on New Year's Eve by people setting off fireworks may have been smoldering, and life was breathed into it when the first round of severe Santa Ana winds kicked up last Tuesday. On the Eaton fire, lawsuits have been filed against Southern California Edison, some believing power lines blown down in the high winds sparked that blaze. Wildfire attorney Trey Robinson says it doesn't look good for the utility.
Despite the National Weather Service issuing the highest level warnings that they issue, particularly dangerous situation of life-threatening extreme fire risk weather, they chose not to de-energize their circuits in the Altadena, Pasadena area.
So far, 25 people have been found dead. That number is expected to continue to go up. Jim Roope, Los Angeles.
A 4-hour grilling on Capitol Hill as Defense Secretary Nominee and former Fox News host Pete Hegseth sat before the Senate Armed Services Committee. Washington correspondent Sagar Meghani files this.
The senator from Virginia starts bringing up the fact that what if you showed up drunk to your job? How many senators have showed up drunk to vote at night? Have any of you guys asked them to step down and resign from their job? And then how many senators do you know have got a divorce before cheating on their wives? Did you ask them to step down?
One of Donald Trump's most endangered cabinet picks is facing a testy confirmation hearing before the Senate Armed Services Committee. Former Fox News host Pete Hegseth cited his combat experience as one reason to confirm him as Defense Secretary.
It's time to give someone with dust on his boots the helm. A change agent.
Who would foster a warrior culture at the Pentagon.
When President Trump chose me for this position, the primary charge he gave me was to bring the warrior culture back to the Department of Defense.
While Hegseth's military background is seen as an asset, he also faces accusations of heavy drinking and womanizing.
There was a coordinated smear campaign orchestrated in the media.
Top panel Democrat Jack Reed says he cannot back Hegseth.
Mr. Hegseth, I do not believe that you are qualified to meet the overwhelming demands of this job.
Fellow Democrat Kirsten Gillibrand blasted Hegseth's past comments that women straight up should not serve in combat roles.
They're brutal and they're mean.
Panel Chair Roger Wicker calls Hegseth unconventional.
Just like that New York developer who rode down the escalator in 2015.
But Hegseth faces perhaps the hardest confirmation path of any Trump pick. An AP Nork Center for Public Affairs research poll finds only about 2 in 10 Americans approve of his nomination. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
The top stories of the day are sponsored by Sleep Number. Sleep better together. It's the lowest price of the season on the top-selling Sleep Number i8 smart bed. Limited time exclusively at a Sleep Number store. Banning men from playing in women's sports. When America in the Morning continues after these messages. Welcome back. You're with America in the Morning. It's mid-January. Where's that snow likely today? Here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
As the storm tracks to the east over the northern plains and the upper Midwest, expect some snowflakes in the air today. The highest chance for a period of steady snow is likely to end up in the area from northeastern Minnesota into perhaps the far northwestern corner of the upper peninsula of Michigan by this afternoon, with afternoon snow showers for northern Wisconsin and the rest of the western upper peninsula as well. Snow then crosses the Great Lakes tonight, leaving a general 1 to 3 inches of accumulation through Michigan and into all but far southern Ohio before snow crosses into western Pennsylvania around dawn. Snow totals of 3 to 6 inches are expected to stay close to near coastal places downwind of Lakes Michigan and Erie, but there can also be some higher totals over the mountains of northeastern West Virginia and into southwestern Pennsylvania. There can also be continuing lake effect flurries and snow showers for a time today over interior sections of the Northeast and into northern New England, but mainly dry conditions extend from coastal New England through the Mid-Atlantic, Southeast, and interior portions of the South. Locations along the Texas Gulf Coast, on the other hand, will have an ongoing risk for showers today, and as the associated disturbance moves to the east, showers eventually extend into southern Louisiana. That's it for organized precipitation across the nation today, as milder air leads to a mid-month thaw across the northern high plains and parts of the northern plains that have been stuck in a deep freeze early this week. The lack of precipitation won't assist the efforts to put out the numerous fires over Southern California, and localized strong winds up to 80 miles per hour are expected to continue at times today before a pattern change brings lighter onshore winds. In Houston, expect a cloudy and cool day today with a passing shower or two and a high of just 53. In Portland, Oregon, low clouds and fog give way to some sun with a high of 50. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Remember to follow us wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. On Capitol Hill, the GOP-led House passes a bill banning men from women's sports in schools. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports.
The Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act would amend federal law to specify that student athletes have to participate in school sports teams that coincide with their gender at birth. Lawmakers behind the bill say it's absurd.
We have to actually pass a bill that says only women can be in women's sports, but I've been honored to be in part of the fight.
Republican Congressman Greg Steube.
This is the type of thing that even moderate, independent women are appalled that their daughters are actually in locker rooms with biological men. And it polls overwhelmingly popular that we want to have and protect women's sports.
Critics of the legislation suggest it could isolate and stigmatize transgender kids. Congressman Henry Cuellar and Vicente Gonzalez, both of Texas, were the lone Democrats to vote for the bill when it passed this week. The Senate expected to take up the legislation sooner than later. I'm Clayton Neville.
We have the Internal Revenue Service to collect taxes, and now President-elect Donald Trump wants to create a new government agency to oversee the revenue from tariffs. In a post on Truth Social, Trump says he's going to start with the External Revenue Service, which would be a government agency to collect tariffs, effectively renaming an office that currently exists within the Treasury Department. Trump campaigned on tariff rates as high as 20% on all imported goods and some even higher, depending on the country. Some estimates have projected that those could raise hundreds of billions of dollars in new revenue. However, some economists warn it could also reignite inflation and raise prices on goods, including in supermarkets, appliances, cars, and even energy. The government collected about $80 billion in tariffs in 2023. Effective today's release of the Consumer Price Index on markets and banking stocks rising. Those stories when America in the Morning continues after these messages. America in the Morning continues. The Business Report is brought to you by Fisher Investments. Fisher Investments is a fiduciary, always putting clients' interests first. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. A key government report could rattle markets today. Here's CNBC's Jessica Ettinger.
Wall Street opens this morning after a mixed day for stocks yesterday, and the first read on inflation of the week on wholesale inflation. It went up less than expected in December. Today, we get inflation at the consumer level. The December CPI, the Consumer Price Index, comes out this morning.
As you know, we've been correcting now for almost a month. Wednesday is an important day because it is a possible turning point for markets. And I would like to see CPI come in below, 0.25 or so. And I think that would give that jolt of confidence for markets.
Fundstrat's Tom Lee on CNBC. Job cuts starting to add up this week. Facebook parent Meta will shed 5% of its workforce as it faces an intense year. This is according to an internal memo. Hiring pauses and job cuts at a wide range of companies, including Microsoft, Ally Financial, BlackRock, Jack Daniels maker Brown-Forman, The Washington Post, and Southwest Airlines. Boeing out with disappointing plane deliveries for 2024.
348 for the year. For a point of reference, Airbus, their chief rival, delivered 766 commercial airplanes.
CNBC's Phil LeBeau. China could sell TikTok to billionaire Elon Musk, said a Bloomberg report, while TikTok called it pure fiction, according to Variety. Meantime, TikTok, owned by Chinese company ByteDance, sits on the phones of nearly half the U.S. population. It is seen as a security risk, and Congress passed a law that says it must be banned or sold to an American owner.
I got to tell you, I did some reporting on this. There is a hope in the ByteDance camp, certainly, that what they will do is issue an administrative delay, which would have the effect of giving it to the Trump administration and allowing them to sort of administer and or interpret the law that's been passed by Congress.
CNBC's David Faber. Earnings season starts this morning. Quarterly results coming from the big banks, and investors can see some blowout numbers.
The setup for big banks hasn't been this good and this optimistic in a long time, and it has to do with Wall Street. So if you look at trading, investment banking, and asset and wealth management, they all have tailwinds in the quarter. So JP Morgan just last month said that they expect 4Q investment banking revenue to be up 45%.
CNBC banking reporter Hugh Son. Big business cozying up to the incoming president. Reports say that seated on the inaugural platform on Monday will be Tesla CEO Elon Musk, Facebook parent Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg, and Amazon founder and billionaire Jeff Bezos. On today's watch list, we do get that inflation data, and earnings season begins. We get reports from JP Morgan Chase, Citigroup, Goldman Sachs, and BlackRock.
Thank you, CNBC's Jessica Ettinger. When we return on America in the Morning, Manhattan's new toll for drivers, unexpected consequences after these messages. Welcome back. This is America in the Morning. 1 week into a new congestion pricing toll for drivers in Manhattan, and results are less cars on the roads, but still traffic, and now more people in an already crowded subway. Correspondent Julie Walker reports.
A new toll on drivers entering the core of Manhattan brought modest but measurable traffic reductions to New York City's heavily gridlocked streets in the first week of congestion pricing. That's according to preliminary data by the MTA. The First in the Nation program began January 5th, collecting $9 for most passenger cars entering Manhattan during peak hours below 60th Street. In the days since, total traffic dropped by 7.5%, or roughly 43,000 cars per day, compared to the equivalent period last year. Transportation experts caution against drawing broad conclusions about the program after barely a week, and there are still several lawsuits pending against it. Julie Walker, New York.
A new USDA report on contamination at a food processing plant in Virginia now includes unsanitary conditions at several other Boar's Head's meat plants. Lisa Dwyer reports.
Government inspectors documented unsanitary conditions at several Boar's Head deli meat plants, not just the Jarrett, Virginia factory that was shut down last year after a deadly outbreak of listeria poisoning sickened more than 60 people and killed 10. Reports from Boar's Head plants in Newcastle, Indiana, Forest City, Arkansas, and Petersburg, Virginia, described multiple instances of slime, dripping condensation falling on food, mold, insects, and other problems dating back roughly 6 years. The U.S. Agriculture Department says there are now new, stronger measures to control listeria. Boar's Head says the violations did not meet their high standards. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
America in the Morning for Wednesday, January 15th, 2025 is produced by Jeff McKay, senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. Coming up this half hour, we'll have the latest on the Los Angeles wildfires.
Mediators say we're getting closer to a ceasefire deal in the Middle East. I'm Clayton Neville.
Pete Hegseth has his day before the Senate, and more Trump cabinet picks get their nomination hearings today. I'm John Stolness in Washington.
The Biden administration is moving to lift Cuba's designation as a state sponsor of terrorism. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
U.S. wholesale prices rose 0.2% last month. I'm Jennifer King.
How the flags will fly on Monday, and Elon Musk sued by the SEC.
The View sounds off about Carrie Underwood with both predictable and unpredictable responses. I'm Kevin Carr.
Back after these messages. This is America in the Morning. On this mid-January day, a warm blast of air for some. Here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
A warm front stretching roughly north to south and moving eastward through the northern and even north-central plains brings not only some relief following temperatures that were 15 to 25 degrees below zero on Tuesday morning and even lower in spots, but some legitimately milder air. Look for high temperatures to climb 10 to 20 degrees above the historical average today from eastern Montana through North Dakota and northwestern South Dakota, reaching around 40 in places such as Bismarck, North Dakota, that had highs just a couple of degrees above zero as recently as Monday. For Thursday, the milder conditions advanced through the upper Midwest, bringing more tolerable temperatures across much of Minnesota, Iowa, and even northern Illinois, including the Chicago area. However, as that front drives eastward, some snow will follow ahead of it, with steadier snow for northeastern Minnesota by the afternoon and snow showers by the end of the day for places such as northern Wisconsin and mainly the western half or so of the upper peninsula of Michigan. Through tonight, snow spreads across much of the rest of the Great Lakes region, and there can be a general 1 to 3 inches of snow from Michigan and northeastern Indiana across much of Ohio, likely reaching the Pennsylvania border into the daybreak hours. Any higher amount should be mainly confined to areas just downwind of Lakes Michigan and Erie, as well as the high ground of West Virginia and southwestern Pennsylvania. Elsewhere in the nation, a surge of Gulf of Mexico moisture around the Texas Gulf Coast will continue to promote showers today. Those showers should push northward into more of particularly southern Louisiana as the day progresses. Otherwise, fairly potent high pressure over the Ohio Valley and an even stronger high over the Intermountain West both promote dry conditions as dangerous fire conditions persist into the day today over parts of Southern California. California. That's the weather across America. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Remember, you can follow us wherever you get your podcasts: Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. Nearly 100,000 people remain under evacuation orders as the Los Angeles wildfires remain out of control, fueled again by hurricane-force Santa Ana winds. As losses mount, homeowners' concerns on insurance claims rise. Here's correspondent Julie Walker.
County Fire Chief Anthony Maroney.
The anticipated winds, combined with low humidities and low fuel moistures, will keep the fire threat in the LA region critical.
City Fire Chief Kristen Crowley says they're pre-positioning for any new wildfires.
We're carefully managing our operations to ensure that we can quickly respond to any new fires, in addition to the increased call volume.
They continue to say until it's safe, many residents can't go back and check on homes, and LA County Sheriff Robert Luna warning residents to be ready for more evacuations so there's no repeat of last week.
A lot of the people that were rescuing who waited till the last minute to leave the order or the evacuation order, many of them had significant burns on them.
And law enforcement officials say arrests continue for things like looting, trespass, curfew, and 3 people who tried to start small fires that were immediately extinguished were arrested on arson charges.
The insurance industry remains very profitable, but we can expect to see more major climate disasters, and we need to figure out the insurance piece along with everything else.
The Los Angeles area wildfires come at a time when many insurance companies dropped fire policies or stopped issuing them because of the threat. California Senator Adam Schiff just introduced federal legislation to stabilize the market.
This is something I've been working on for years over the opposition of the insurance industry.
The Democrat says this is not a blue or red state issue, and the incoming Trump administration needs to come through for his state.
I am concerned about it, but I'm hoping that they will take the approach, frankly, that I've taken over my years in Congress.
Royal Lavasani lost her home and rental properties in the Palisades fire. She has the FAIR Plan, which California created as a last resort for homeowners, but is concerned about payouts.
Our property worth $5.5 to $6 million, and now it's just ashes left and the land, empty land.
I'm Julie Walker.
Several world leaders say a deal that would release Israeli hostages being held by Hamas and secure a ceasefire between the terror group and Israel is getting close. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports both sides still have issues in securing a final deal that are being addressed.
In his final speech before President Biden leaves office, Secretary of State Antony Blinken said that a final draft of a potential ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas is being considered by both parties and by mediators, which would include the release of hostages. He touted the work of the Biden administration trying to resolve conflict in the Middle East.
We strengthened America's robust sanctions regime on Iran and delivered on President Biden's commitment that Iran would not obtain a nuclear weapon on his watch.
The remarks didn't come without disruption.
We strengthened America's robust sanctions regime on Iran and delivered on President Biden's commitment.
You will forever be known as Bloody Blinken, Secretary of Genocide.
A protester going after Blinken for the lack of a ceasefire deal to this point.
Kill, kill, and kill, and kill, just like the Israelis say. You're a brutal.
Blinken spoke about some of the obstacles since Hamas's attack on Israel.
As notes recovered from meetings of Hamas's top officials would later reveal, Hamas sought to spark a regional war that would derail this agreement, knowing that doing so would inflict immense suffering on civilians on all sides.
Blinken met with the Atlantic Council about the future of the Middle East and how Gaza will govern and rebuild after the war.
No one should expect Israel to accept a Palestinian state that's led by Hamas or other extremists, that's militarized or has independent armed militia, that aligns with Iran or others who reject Israel's right to exist.
While America is optimistic, Qatari officials said this week that the two sides are in the final details of reaching an agreement and that negotiations are, quote, at the final stage. I'm Clayton Neville.
President-elect Donald Trump's nominee to run the Pentagon, Pete Hegseth, received a grilling from Democratic members of the Senate Armed Services Committee. Today, Trump's picks for Attorney General and Secretary of State get their turn in the sun. John Stolnis has that story from Washington.
In his opening statement, Hegseth thanked the president-elect for giving him the opportunity to potentially serve as defense secretary.
He, like me, wants a Pentagon laser-focused on lethality, meritocracy, warfighting, accountability, and readiness.
The former Fox News TV host and military veteran soon found himself questioned by Democrats about past marital affairs, accusations of sexual assault in his past, and his qualifications to run the Pentagon. Democratic Senator Tim Kaine pressed Hegseth on violations of previous vows of marriage he'd taken and compared that to his vow to protect Americans as defense secretary.
Can you so casually cheat on a second wife and cheat on the mother of a child that had been born 2 months before, and you tell us you are completely cleared? How is that a complete clear?
It appears Hegseth has enough support to make it through the Armed Services Committee after potential Republican holdout Joni Ernst told a radio show after the hearing that she will support Hegseth's nomination. Later today, 7 more confirmation hearings will be held by various Senate committees. One of the highest profile, but perhaps one of the least contentious hearings will be for Florida Senator Marco Rubio and his bid to become Secretary of State. Enough of his Democratic colleagues appear willing to support his nomination. However, Trump's pick for Attorney General Pam Bondi is expected to face harsher questioning over her role in Trump's efforts to overturn the 2020 presidential election, as well as her defense of Trump before Congress at one of his impeachment hearings.
Joe Biden was the point man for Ukraine, investigating. At the time, Ukrainians were a corrupt company, Burisma.
On the national security side, the Homeland Security Committee will hear testimony from North Dakota Governor Kristi Noem. Trump has cited her as being very strong on border security. She would work with Trump border czar Tom Homan to craft immigration policy. John Ratcliffe, Trump's pick to head the CIA, was already confirmed by the Senate back in 2020 to be Trump's Director of National Intelligence. His hearing will take place before the Senate Intelligence Committee. John Stolnis, Washington.
Many Cuban Americans are outraged by President Biden's latest move. That, When America in the Morning, continues after these messages. America in the Morning continues. I'm John Trout. President Biden is rescinding Cuba's state terror sponsor designation. As Washington correspondent Sagar Meghani reports, there is outrage among Cuban Americans, including Florida Congresswoman Maria Elvira Salazar, who took to social media to vent her outrage.
It gives more oxygen, economic oxygen to the regime so it can continue repressing more people. The repressive apparatus will be greased. It's embarrassing because Blinken, as you know, in the House Foreign Affairs Committee told me repeatedly that he was not thinking about taking Cuba off the list of terrorist countries. And now he called my office and said that Biden, directly from the White House, he had been directed that he had to take Cuba off the list.
The Biden administration is moving to lift Cuba's designation as a state sponsor of terrorism. It's part of a deal facilitated by the Catholic Church to free political prisoners on the island. The U.S. will also ease some economic pressure on Cuba. President Obama had reversed the terror designation in 2016 during a period of thawing relations with Havana, which included a visit to the Cuban capital.
I have come here to bury the last remnant of the Cold War in the Americas.
Donald Trump reinstated the designation in 2017. President Biden's move to lift it again is likely to be reversed as early as next week, once Trump takes office, with Secretary of State Marco Rubio, whose family left Cuba before Fidel Castro came to power. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
The nation continues to fly flags at half-staff to honor the passing of former President Jimmy Carter, but flags at the U.S. Capitol and in a number of states will be raised to full staff on Monday for the inauguration of Donald Trump. House Speaker Mike Johnson made the announcement and joins Texas, Alabama, Nebraska, North Dakota, Tennessee, Florida, and Iowa. The president-elect had complained about the flags being lowered for the inauguration. Johnson and the governors all said that flags would be back to half-staff on Tuesday to continue to honor Carter through the end of the month. The government releases its latest report on wholesale prices, and while less than expected, there are concerns. Jennifer King explains.
U.S. wholesale prices rose 0.2% last month, totaling a 3.3% increase from 1 year earlier. That's according to the latest report from the Labor Department. The Producer Price Index tracks inflation before it hits consumers. Rising energy costs were to blame, led by an increase in gasoline prices. Core inflation for wholesale goods was unchanged from November. The numbers are slightly lower than economists had expected, but Carl Weinberg, chief economist at High Frequency Economics, says the Fed will not see any argument for pushing interest rates lower sooner in today's figures. Coming up Wednesday, the closely watched Consumer Price Index, which is expected to see a slight rise in inflation to 2.8% from last year, according to a survey of forecasters by the data firm FactSet. I'm Jennifer King.
New troubles for Elon Musk. The Securities and Exchange Commission has filed a lawsuit against the billionaire owner of Tesla, alleging he committed securities fraud by not disclosing he had amassed an active stake in Twitter in 2022, which allowed him to buy shares at lower prices. Musk purchased the social media site for $44 billion in late 2022, and the SEC says that allowed him to underpay by at least $150 million for Twitter, which he later renamed X. Musk has called the case a sham. Now that the annual Consumer Electronics Show has been unplugged for another year, what new tech gadgets will emerge, or what must-have devices will we need to improve our lives? Chuck Palm looks at a few innovative devices in today's tech news.
The annual Computer Electronics Show in Las Vegas is a haven for the entire tech community to display and swoon over all the new electronic gadgets coming out in 2025. Here's a short list of some of the highlights. Samsung and LG will be partnering with Microsoft to bring AI into their TVs, and Samsung is working to put AI into fridges, ovens, ACs, and washing machines, to name just a few. Dell, HP, and Qualcomm are also putting AI into their laptops and other computers. And, not to be outdone, NVIDIA is branching off to put AI-connected agents and real-world usage for AI in robots and other small desktop systems called Project Digits, the world's smallest personal AI supercomputer. And if that did not cause enough trepidation, NVIDIA hinted at breakthroughs that would make artificial general intelligence a reality much sooner than most people anticipated. For more tech updates, follow me on X at Chuck Palm.
Wednesday Sports is in on America in the Morning. Here's our Robert Workman.
Just like in college football, the SEC is dominant in basketball. 9 teams in the top 25, 4 of them in the top 6, including new number 1 Auburn, which rolled over number 15 Mississippi State 88-66 last night. But you never seem to get a night off. 4th-ranked Alabama lost to number 21 Mississippi 74-64, and number 5 Florida fell to Missouri 83-82. 8th-ranked Kentucky got by number 11 Texas A&M 81-69. NBA Jamal Murray scored 45 points to lead the Nuggets over the Mavericks 118-99. A season-high 43 for Trae Young as the Hawks shaded the Suns 122-117. 2 nights after Indiana ended Cleveland's 12-game winning streak, the Cavaliers paid back the Pacers, ending their 6-game run. Bucks stopped the Kings' 7-game roll. Giannis Antetokounmpo posted his 50th career triple-double. Wins for the Thunder, Pelicans, and Nets. NHL, the first-place Capitals shut out the Ducks 3-0, 19 saves for Logan Thompson. The West-leading Jets crushed the Canucks 6-1. Kyle Connor with a first-period hat trick. Sharks encircled the Red Wings to end Detroit's 7-game winning streak. Blue Jackets winged the Flyers in a shootout. Columbus has now won 5 in a row. Second-round play at the Australian Open, 3-seed Carlos Alcaraz needed just 81 minutes to advance, while 7-seed Novak Djokovic was a 4-set winner in his 430th Grand Slam singles match. That passes Roger Federer for the most in the Open era. That's Wednesday Sports.
Thank you, Robert. New rant for the women of The View when America in the Morning continues after these messages. This is America in the Morning. Welcome back. Harrowing stories of survival as a result of the Los Angeles wildfires, including a number of elderly citizens who had to be taken from senior care facilities as the flames were fast approaching. Correspondent Clayton reports on one senior living home evacuated in the city of Los Angeles.
Hundreds of patients and residents of nursing homes, assisted living facilities, and group homes were evacuated after the blazes in the Los Angeles area last week. One of those homes was the Terraces of Pasadena. Among the people who called the Terraces home was Louise Miller.
It was very nice. I was happy to be there. If I had to be away from home, I was happy to be there.
The 93 residents, ranging in age from 60 to 102, were divided between assisted living and memory care. When the backyard of the facilities started to catch fire, Community Relations Director Sam Baum says staff began to band together.
We had other staff members who came in voluntarily. I'm talking about servers in the dining room who came to help. This whole family, this whole team came together to evacuate this building in about an hour.
Despite all of the smoke and chaos, all of the residents and staff made it out safely and have a temporary home to live in. I'm Haya Panjwani.
The women of ABC TV's The View are weighing in on a country music superstar's decision to sing at Monday's inauguration of Donald Trump. Kevin Carr reports.
This week's announcement that Carrie Underwood will be performing at Donald Trump's inauguration next week has ruffled some people's feathers while others are thrilled. On Tuesday's episode of The View, the women talked about the issue. Alyssa Farah Griffin predictably supports Underwood, saying she wants to move past canceling people for political reasons. She said there were other ways to express discourse.
If you have a problem, you register your complaint by not downloading her songs and not going to her shows.
Also predictably, Joy Behar clapped back with criticism of the president-elect.
I don't understand how you say you love your country at the same time as you normalize this convicted felon.
Sonny Hostin took a more measured approach.
I think art is art, and you have a right to perform where you want to perform.
But it was Whoopi Goldberg who played moderator, a role she has been taking on more and more lately.
If I believe I have the right to make up my mind to go perform someplace, I believe they have the same right.
Of course.
And so I have to, I have to support.
Also impacting The View, this week Hostin's husband, Dr. Emmanuel Hostin, was named in an insurance fraud lawsuit with nearly 200 other defendants. Dr. Hostin is accused of filing fraudulent claims with the American Transit Insurance Company. The Hostins have vehemently denied the allegations and accuse American Transit of muddying the waters ahead of a potential bankruptcy. The View host said that she and her husband are planning a $5 million defamation countersuit. I'm Kevin Carr.
That's our show for today, Wednesday, January 15th, 2025. America in the Morning is produced by Jeff McKay, senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One.